This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Hey guys, and welcome to All About Linux. Today, I'll be testing and comparing the CPU, GPU, and RAM performance of GhostBSD 21.05.11 and Linux Mint 20.2 Mint. This is really my first time testing BSD and my second time using a FreeBSD-based distro, so do forgive me if I misuse or misread some terms in BSD. GhostBSD 21.05.11 is based on FreeBSD 13 and provides an easy way for one to start using BSD, while Linux Mint 20.2 is based on Ubuntu 20.04 and provides an easy way for one to start using Linux. Both distros are running the Mate desktop. However, there are options for XFCE and Cinnamon desktops on Linux Mint. Unfortunately for BSD, there is no native Steam support and emulation is also pretty rough. So for this test, we will test the raw performance of each distro using the benchmarks on the Phoronix test suite. Each test is run 3 rounds and the average result is taken for the best accuracy. No additional drivers have been installed and my tests are run on a clean install of each distro. My test PC is sporting an AMD Ryzen 5 2400G CPU, an AMD Radeon RX 590 with 8GB of GDDR5 VRAM and 16GB of DDR4 2666MHz RAM. Without further ado, let's see how they perform. Starting with some CPU related tests, I ran the compressed gzip benchmark. This test measures the time needed to compress 2 copies of the Linux 4.13 kernel source tree using gzip compression. The time taken to compress these 2 copies of the kernel source is measured, and hence the lower the time taken, the better. For GhostBSD, the average time taken was 60.92 seconds, while on Linux Mint, the average time taken was 39.34 seconds. It seems like Linux Mint is approximately 35% faster than GhostBSD. Still in the CPU department, I also ran the X265 benchmark. This test is a simple test of the X265 encoder run on the CPU with 1080p and 4K options for H.265 video encode performance with libx265. However, for this test, I will only be running the encoder with a 1080p video and not a 4K one. The average frames per second when encoding the video is measured, and the higher the FPS, the better. This time, both Linux Mint and GhostBSD were neck on neck, with GhostBSD attaining a result of 22.60 FPS and Linux Mint attaining 22.05 FPS. By the way, if you like this video, do consider hitting the subscribe and like button. To test the GPU performance, I ran the X11perf benchmark. This test measures window management performance as well as the traditional graphics performance in the X server and reports how fast the X server can execute the test. I ran 2 of the available tests, the put image 500x500 pixels square test and the scroll 500x500 pixels test, which tests the image rendering performance and the scrolling performance of apps. This test will be a gauge of how other apps will perform in each distro. The number of operations per second is measured, and the higher the operations, the better. For the put image test, Linux Mint absolutely dominated GhostBSD with 2223 operations compared to 641 per second on the latter. For the scroll test, GhostBSD took the lead from Linux Mint again, with 21,767 operations compared to 19,594 operations per second for Linux Mint. Finally, I did some tests to find out about the RAM usage for each distro. It should be noted that these RAM usages include that of the screen recorder, simple screen recorder. When idle, GhostBSD uses quite a bit less RAM than Linux Mint, using 1.3GB and 1.8GB respectively. Opening the start page of Firefox, RAM usage increased by 0.4GB on GhostBSD and 0.2GB on Linux Mint, with GhostBSD at 1.7GB and Linux Mint at 2.0GB. Playing one of my previous videos, RAM usage increased by another 0.3GB on both distros, finishing the test at 2.0GB and 2.3GB. This round is a win for GhostBSD. So, in conclusion, this test is a tie. GhostBSD excelled in the RAM usage test and the scrolling test, while Linux Mint aced the compression test and the put image test, and the 2 distros were tied in the H.265 video encoding test. I actually prefer Linux Mint quite a bit more over GhostBSD at this time, due to its consistent performance, but it is hard to deny that GhostBSD is the more lightweight distro of the 2. Also, I have not used GhostBSD and FreeBSD-based distros long enough, so my opinions might change down the road. Now, I would like to talk about today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN protects your privacy and security online and blocks geo-restricted content like certain Netflix libraries with features like its ultra-fast 3,200 plus servers in 65 countries, industry-leading encryption, ad blocker, and many others. It works on an unlimited number of devices, from Android and iOS to Windows, macOS, and Linux, to Chrome and Firefox extensions. Best of all, you can get Surfshark VPN today for the first 3 months free, then 81% off for just $2.49 per month. Do head over to surfshark.deals/allaboutlinux and get Surfshark today. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Do let me know if you have any suggestions for things or games to test in future videos. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching and I will see you all in the next video.